The great hall of the Galactic Concord was filled with voices. Hundreds of diplomats from 12 different species sat in their seats, talking and arguing about trade routes and border disputes. The ceiling rose high above them, covered in paintings that showed the history of peace between the stars. For 6,000 years, the Concord had kept order in the galaxy. Wars were stopped before they started. Conflicts were solved with words, not weapons. Ambassador Cirrus Thalvine stood near the back of the hall, her long silver robes touching the floor. She was Cathari, a species known for their thin bodies and large dark eyes. Her skin was pale blue, and her fingers were long and delicate. She had served the Concord for 40 years, and she had seen many things. But today, something felt wrong. She could not explain it. The air felt heavy, like a storm was coming. The session had just begun when the first message arrived. A young officer ran into the hall, his face filled with fear. He carried a data tablet that glowed red, which meant emergency. The room fell silent as Elder Counselor Morath, the oldest and most respected member of the council, took the tablet and read it. His face changed. In all her years, Cirrus had never seen Morath look afraid. But now, his 4 eyes were wide, and his hands were shaking. "The Dravathi hegemony has attacked," he said. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him. "They have destroyed 3 border stations. Their war fleets are moving into Concord space." The hall exploded with noise. Diplomats shouted questions. Some stood up from their seats. Others called for their ships to be prepared. The Dravathi were an old enemy, a brutal species that believed in conquest and power. For centuries, treaties had kept them away. But now, those treaties were broken. Over the next few days, more messages came. Each one was worse than the last. The Dravathi were not just attacking, they were burning everything. Whole planets were being destroyed. Millions of people were dying. The Concord's defense forces fought back, but they were old and weak. They had not prepared for real war in thousands of years. Cirrus watched as hope left the eyes of her fellow diplomats. The great hall that once felt so powerful now felt like a tomb. They were losing. Everyone knew it. On the 7th day, Elder Counselor Morath called a secret meeting. Only the highest members of the council were invited. Cirrus was surprised when she received the summons. She was respected, but she was not a leader. Still, she went. The meeting was held in a small room deep beneath the great hall. The walls were made of ancient stone, and the only light came from glowing crystals set into the ceiling. Morath stood at the center of the room, looking older than Cyrus had ever seen him. "What I am about to tell you," Morath said, "has been kept secret for 30,000 years. Only the elder counselors have known the truth. But now, with death coming for us all, I must share it." He pressed a button on the table, and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed a planet, blue and green, with white clouds and large oceans. Cirrus had never seen it before. "This world is called Earth," Morath said, "and the species that lived there were called humans." Cyrus leaned forward. She had heard stories about humans when she was a child. Everyone had. They were legends, myths, fairy tales, told to young ones before sleep. Humans were supposed to be protectors, warriors who came from the stars to save the innocent. But they were not real. They could not be real. "Humans existed," Morath continued. 30,000 years ago, our ancestors found their world. They were primitive then, still learning to build cities and grow food. Our ancestors watched them for a while, and then they left. They did not think humans were important. The hologram changed. It showed old records, ancient documents written in languages that Cyrus could not read. But then, something strange happened. Every probe we sent to their system disappeared. Every ship that tried to visit their world never came back. After a few centuries, we stopped trying. We put a warning around their space and told everyone to stay away. And slowly, over thousands of years, humans became a legend. A story, nothing more. One of the other counselors spoke up. "Why are you telling us this now?" Morath's eyes were heavy with sorrow. "Because the founders of the Concord left us something. A beacon. They said it should only be used when all hope was lost. They said that if we were ever facing extinction, we should light the beacon and wait." "Wait for what?" Cirrus asked. "For the humans to answer." The room was silent. Cirrus felt her heart beating fast. This was madness. Humans were not real. They were stories for children. But Morath was not a fool. He would not speak of this unless he believed it. The beacon has been hidden for 30,000 years, Morath said. I do not know if humans still exist. I do not know if they will help us even if they do. But I know that the Dravathi will reach this world in 3 weeks, and when they do, they will kill everyone. Every man, woman, and child. Every species in the Concord will be destroyed. He looked at each of them. We have nothing left to lose. The vote was quick. Everyone agreed to light the beacon. What choice did they have? That night, Cirrus could not sleep. She went to the Forbidden Archives, a place where ancient knowledge was kept. She had special permission to enter, but she had never used it before. The archives were dark and dusty, filled with old books and data crystals that had not been touched in centuries. She searched for hours, and slowly, she found the truth. Humans had been real. The records proved it. There were pictures of them, drawings made by ancient explorers. They looked strange, with soft skin and small eyes and hair on their heads. They walked on 2 legs and had 5 fingers on each hand. They were not beautiful like the Cathari or strong like the Dravathi. They looked weak and fragile, but the old records said something else. They said that humans were stubborn. They said that humans never gave up. They said that when humans loved something, they would die to protect it, and when humans hated something, they would fight until it was destroyed. Cyrus read until the morning light came through the small windows of the archive. She did not know what to believe. The beacon had been lit. Somewhere in the dark space beyond the Concord's borders, a signal was flying toward a world that might not exist anymore. She walked back to her room as the sun rose over Velketh Prime. The streets were empty. Everyone was afraid. The Dravathi were coming, and no one could stop them. Cirrus looked up at the sky, at the stars that were slowly fading in the morning light. Somewhere out there, past the borders of known space, was a place called Earth, and on that world, 30,000 years ago, a species called humans had lived. Were they still there? Were they listening? She did not know. No one knew. But for the first time in weeks, Cirrus felt something strange in her heart. It was small and weak, like a candle flame in a storm. But it was there. Hope. She held on to it as she walked home, and she prayed to whatever gods might listen that the legends were true. 3 weeks passed, and the beacon brought nothing. No answer came from the darkness beyond the stars. The hope that Cirrus had felt slowly died, replaced by cold fear. The Dravathi were getting closer every day. Their ships burned through system after system, leaving only death behind them. Cyrus was assigned to a diplomatic convoy that was fleeing from Meridian Station. The station had been one of the largest in the Concord, home to 2 million people. Now it was gone, destroyed by Dravathi weapons. The survivors were packed into transport ships, trying to escape before the enemy caught them. There were 12 ships in the convoy. Most of them were old cargo vessels that had been changed to carry passengers. They were slow and had no weapons. 2 small warships from the Concord Defense Force flew beside them, but everyone knew they would not be enough if the Dravathi came. Cyrus stood in the bridge of her transport ship, watching the stars pass by on the view screen. Around her, officers worked at their stations, their faces tired and scared. The captain was a Morveth named Talek, a large creature with gray skin and 4 arms. He had been a merchant before the war. Now he was trying to save as many lives as he could. How long until we reach safe space? Cyrus asked. Talek shook his head. 6 hours, maybe 7. If we are lucky. They were not lucky. 2 hours later, the sensors began to scream. Talek's face went pale as he read the data. Dravathi raiders, he said. 3 ships. They are coming out of FTL now. Cirrus felt her heart stop. She looked at the view screen and saw them appear. 3 Dravathi warships, their hulls painted red like blood. They were hunters, built for speed and killing. The convoy's 2 escorts moved to protect the transports, but it was hopeless. The Dravathi ships were bigger and stronger. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes. The first escort was destroyed by a direct hit to its engine. The second one tried to fight back, but the Dravathi surrounded it and tore it apart. Cirrus watched as the ship exploded, taking 50 crew members with it. Now there was nothing between the convoy and the hunters. The lead Dravathi ship moved forward, its weapons powered up, glowing with deadly energy. Cirrus knew what came next. She had seen the reports from other attacks. The Dravathi did not take prisoners. They did not show mercy. They killed everyone and took whatever they wanted from the wreckage. She closed her eyes and thought of her home. She thought of her family, her friends, the peaceful life she had lived before the war. It was all going to end here, in the cold darkness between the stars. Then something happened. The view screen flickered. The sensors made a strange sound, a noise that Cyrus had never heard before. Talek was staring at his instruments, his mouth open in shock. "What is that?" he whispered. Cyrus looked at the view screen. And she saw it. Something had appeared between the convoy and the Dravathi. It was a ship, but it was like no ship she had ever seen. It was huge, bigger than any vessel in the conquered fleet. Its hull was dark gray, covered in sharp angles and flat surfaces. There were no curves, no decorations, nothing beautiful about it. It looked like a weapon given form. The Dravathi ships stopped. For a moment, nothing moved. Then a voice came through the communication systems, speaking in a language that the translators struggled to understand. The words were strange and hard, but slowly they became clear. "Unidentified aggressor vessels. You have fired upon protected civilians. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender. There will be no second warning." The voice was calm and cold. There was no anger in it, no fear. Just a simple statement of fact. Cyrus felt her legs go weak. She grabbed the edge of a console to keep herself standing. That voice, that ship, it could not be real. It was impossible. The Dravathi commander answered with a laugh. His face appeared on the view screen. Red scales and yellow eyes filled with hate. "You dare to threaten us? 1 ship against 3? We are the Dravathi hegemony. We do not surrender to anyone." He gave the order to attack. The 3 Dravathi ships fired everything they had at the unknown vessel. Plasma beams, missiles, kinetic rounds. All of it flew toward the gray ship. Cyrus watched, expecting to see it explode, but the weapons hit the hull and did nothing. The ship did not even move. It simply sat there, taking the full force of the attack like it was nothing. The Dravathi fired again and again. Still, nothing happened. Then the gray ship fired back. 1 shot. That was all it took. A beam of white light came from the front of the vessel and struck the lead Dravathi ship. There was a flash, bright as a star, and then the warship was gone. Not damaged, not crippled, gone. Nothing was left but dust. The 2 remaining Dravathi ships tried to run. They turned and pushed their engines to full power, trying to escape into FTL. They did not make it. 2 more shots, 2 more flashes, and they were gone too. The battle was over. It had lasted less than 30 seconds. Cyrus was shaking. Everyone on the bridge was shaking. They had just watched 3 Dravathi warships, the terror of the galaxy, be destroyed like they were nothing. The communication system made a soft sound. A new signal was coming in, from the gray ship. Talek looked at Cyrus, his eyes asking what to do. She nodded. What choice did they have? He accepted the signal. A face appeared on the view screen. It was like the pictures in the ancient archives, but also different. 2 eyes, soft skin, hair on the head. A female, Cyrus thought, though she was not sure. The face was kind, with lines around the eyes that came from smiling. "This is Captain Elena Vance of the Terran Stellar Navy vessel Adamantine," the woman said. "Is everyone aboard your ships unharmed?" Cyrus stepped forward. Her voice was barely a whisper. You are human." The woman on the screen smiled. It was a warm smile, gentle and sad at the same time. "Yes, we received your beacon 3 weeks ago. We came as fast as we could." She paused. "I am sorry we could not come sooner." Cyrus felt tears falling down her face. She did not try to stop them. Around her, others were crying too. Some were laughing. Some had fallen to their knees. The legends were real. The humans had come. Captain Vance spoke again, her voice soft and calm. "We are going to escort you to safety. Please follow our ship, and do not be afraid. You are under our protection now. No one is going to hurt you." Cyrus looked at the gray ship on the view screen. It was ugly and harsh and built for war. But in that moment, it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. The convoy began to move, following the Adamantine through the stars. And for the first time since the war began, Cyrus believed that they might survive. The humans had answered. The legends had returned, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The inside of the human ship was nothing like Cyrus expected. She had thought it would be cold and hard, like the outside. Instead, she found warmth, The corridors were lit with soft light. The walls had paintings on them, pictures of mountains and oceans and cities. Music played quietly from hidden speakers, strange melodies that made her feel peaceful. The survivors from the convoy were brought aboard the Adamantine and taken to a large room filled with beds and medical equipment. Human doctors moved among them, checking injuries and giving medicine. They spoke softly and smiled often. One of them gave Cirrus a warm blanket and a cup of hot liquid that tasted like flowers. "Drink this," the doctor said. "It will help you relax." Cyrus held the cup in her hands and watched the humans work. They moved with purpose and care. When a child from one of the transport ships started crying, a human soldier knelt down and pulled a small toy from his pocket. It was a soft animal of some kind, with big eyes and floppy ears. The child took it and stopped crying. The soldier smiled and moved on. These were the legends. These soft, kind creatures who gave toys to children and blankets to strangers. Cirrus did not understand. Captain Vance came to see her a few hours later. The human woman was shorter than Cyrus expected, with dark hair pulled back from her face and brown eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore a simple uniform, dark blue with silver buttons, and walked with the easy confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime commanding ships. "Ambassador Thalvine," Vance said. "I was hoping we could talk." Cirrus nodded. "I have many questions. I am sure you do. Come with me." They walked through the corridors of the Adamantine, past crew members who nodded respectfully as the captain passed. Vance led Cirrus to a small room with a large window that looked out at the stars. 2 chairs sat facing each other, with a small table between them. "Please, sit," Vance said. "I will tell you what I can." Cyrus sat. Her mind was full of questions, but she did not know where to start. Finally, she asked the one that mattered most. "Why did your people disappear?" Vance was quiet for a moment. She looked out the window at the stars, her face thoughtful. Then she spoke. "We did not disappear. We chose to leave." "I do not understand." Vance turned to face her. 30,000 years ago, when your ancestors first found Earth, we were primitive. We had just learned to build cities. We knew nothing of space or other species, but we learned fast. We always do. Within a few centuries we had our own ships. We went out into the galaxy, and we saw what was there. She paused. We saw war. Endless, terrible war. Species fighting species. Empires rising and falling. Billions of lives lost over things that did not matter. We saw the cruelty that intelligent beings were capable of, and we saw it in ourselves too. Our own history is filled with blood and hate. We knew that if we joined the galaxy then, we would become part of that cycle. We would fight and kill and conquer, because that is what everyone else was doing. Cyrus listened, her heart heavy. "So we made a choice," Vance continued. "We decided to leave. We sealed our borders. We destroyed every probe that came near our space. We let the galaxy forget about us. And we spent 30,000 years building something better." "Building what?" Vance smiled. "A civilization that chose peace. Not because we were weak, but because we were strong enough to know that strength alone means nothing. We built schools and hospitals and cities. We learned to feed our people and care for our sick. We explored the stars and found thousands of worlds to call home. And we waited. Waited for what? For this moment. For the day when someone would need us. When we could finally do some good." Cyrus felt tears in her eyes again. "You could have conquered the galaxy. With your power, no one could stop you." "Yes," Vance said simply. "We could have. But what would be the point? To rule over ashes? To be feared instead of loved? Our ancestors made enough mistakes for 1,000 lifetimes. We decided to be better." The ship shook slightly as it changed course. Vance looked at her communicator and nodded. "We are approaching Threshold Station. The Admiralty is waiting to meet you." "The Admiralty?" "Our military leaders. They have already made their decision about the war. But they want to speak with you first, to understand what we are facing." Cirrus stood. Her legs were weak, but her heart was strong. "What decision have they made?" Vance met her eyes. "We are going to help you, all of us. Every ship, every soldier, every resource we have. The Dravathi will not destroy your people. We will not allow it." They arrived at Threshold Station an hour later. Cirrus had expected something large. She was not prepared for what she saw. The station was bigger than a planet. It hung in space like a silver moon, covered in lights and docking bays and defense platforms. Thousands of ships moved around it, coming and going like insects around a hive. And beyond the station, Cyrus saw more ships. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. Warships of every size. From small fighters to massive vessels that made the adamantine look like a toy. "This is only one of our border stations," Vance said quietly. "We have 47 more." Cyrus could not speak. She could only stare. They docked with the station and were taken to a large hall where the Admiralty waited. There were 12 of them. Men and women in uniforms covered with medals and ribbons. At their center sat an old man with gray hair and a face carved by time. His eyes were sharp and kind at the same time. "I am Admiral Chen," he said. "Welcome to Threshold, Ambassador. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances." Cyrus bowed. "Thank you for saving us. Thank you for answering the beacon." Chen shook his head. "Do not thank us yet. The hard work is still ahead." He stood and walked toward her. "I have read the reports. The Dravathi are strong, and they are cruel. They have hurt many innocent people. This cannot continue. What will you do?" The Admiral looked at his fellow commanders, then back at Cyrus. "The 1st through 7th Expeditionary Fleets are already preparing to move. 12,000 ships, including the dreadnought Prometheus. We will arrive at Velketh Prime before the Dravathi, and we will end this war." Cyrus felt her heart pounding. "You would do this for us? For strangers?" Admiral Chen put his hand on her shoulder. His touch was gentle, like a father comforting a child. "You lit the beacon because you had no one else to call. You trusted in legends and stories and hope. How could we ignore that?" He smiled. "Besides, we have been waiting 30,000 years to do something good. It is time we earned the legends you have told about us." Cyrus looked at the Admiral, at the officers around him, at the vast fleet waiting outside the windows. These humans had built an empire that could crush the galaxy. Instead, they had chosen to wait in silence, growing strong so they could protect the weak. She thought of all the stories she had heard as a child. Stories of protectors from the stars. Stories of heroes who came when all hope was lost. The stories were true. All of them. And now, finally, the humans were coming home. Velketh Prime was dying. Everyone knew it. The last defenders of the Concord had gathered above the planet. A fleet of 300 ships that had once been the pride of a dozen species. Now they looked old and tired, their hulls scarred by weeks of fighting. Behind them, on the planet below, 8 billion people waited for the end. Elder Counselor Morath stood in the command center of the orbital station, watching the view screens. His 4 eyes were red from lack of sleep. His hands would not stop shaking. He had done everything he could. He had lit the beacon. He had prayed to gods he did not believe in. Nothing had worked. The Dravathi Grand Fleet had arrived that morning. 800 warships, led by the massive dreadnought Crimson Tide. They hung in space like a wall of death, their red hulls glowing in the light of the local sun. The supreme commander of the Dravathi, a brutal warrior named Kesoth, had sent a simple message: surrender or die. Morath had refused. Not because he thought they could win. He knew they could not. He refused because surrender meant slavery, and he would rather die free than live in chains. The Concord fleet formed a defensive line between the Dravathi and the planet. The crews knew they were going to die. Many had said goodbye to their families through video messages. Some had written letters that would never be delivered. A few had simply sat in silence, making peace with what was coming. On the surface of Velketh Prime, billions watched the news feeds. Mothers held their children. Fathers stood in front of their homes, ready to protect their families even though they had no weapons. Old ones remembered the times of peace and cried for what had been lost. Cyrus was there too, watching from the observation deck of the Adamantine. Captain Vance had offered to take her back to Threshold Station, where she would be safe. She had refused. If her people were going to die, she wanted to be with them. Vance stood beside her, her face calm and focused. She was speaking quietly into her communicator, giving orders that Cyrus could not hear. The human woman had not slept in days, but her eyes were still sharp. "How much longer?" Cyrus asked. "Soon," Vance said. "Very soon." The Dravathi fleet began to move. Slowly at first, then faster, their ships spreading out into attack formation. Supreme Commander Kesoth appeared on the view screens, his red face twisted into a smile. "This is your last moment," he said. "Watch as your precious Concord burns. Watch as your people die. And know that this is what happens to those who stand against the hegemony." The first Dravathi ships opened fire. The Concord defenders fired back. The battle had begun. It lasted less than 10 minutes. The Concord fleet fought bravely. Old ships pushed their engines beyond safe limits. Captains ordered attacks they knew would fail. Crews died at their stations, still firing, still fighting. But it was not enough. The Dravathi were too strong, too many. One by one, the defender ships fell. Morath watched as the last cruiser in the defense line exploded. Now there was nothing between the Dravathi and Velketh Prime. He closed his eyes and prepared to give the order to surrender. Then the universe changed. The first sign was the sensors. Every instrument in the system went crazy at the same time, showing readings that made no sense. Then the view screens flickered, filled with static, and then the sky itself seemed to tear open. FTL signatures. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. Ships coming out of faster-than-light travel all around the Dravathi fleet. But not Concord ships. These were different. They were human. Cyrus felt her breath stop as she watched them appear. Ships of every size filled the space between Velketh Prime and the Dravathi. Small fighters and medium cruisers and large battleships, and at their center, something that made her mind go blank with shock. The Prometheus. It was not a ship. It was a mountain given engines and weapons. 12 kilometers long, covered in armor plates thicker than most buildings. Its hull was dark gray, like the adamantine, but covered with weapons that glowed with power. It moved through space like a god walking among insects. The human fleet spread out in perfect formation. 12,000 ships moving as one, their weapons powering up, their shields activating. The Dravathi fleet stopped. For the first time in the battle, they were not moving forward. Admiral Chen's voice filled every communication channel in the system. It was calm and steady, like he was reading a report instead of facing the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Stellar Navy. To the Dravathi fleet, I am giving you one opportunity to withdraw your forces and return to your borders. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is simply what is going to happen. The only choice you have is whether your soldiers go home alive. Supreme Commander Kesoth's face appeared on the screens again, but he was not smiling anymore. His yellow eyes were wide, filled with something Cyrus had never seen in a Dravathi before. Fear. You cannot be real, Kesoth said. Humans are legends, stories. You do not exist. We exist, Chen said, and we are giving you 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal. After that, we will remove you ourselves. Kesoth's face twisted with rage. The fear disappeared, replaced by pride and hate. The Dravathi hegemony does not run. We do not bow to anyone. All ships, attack. Destroy these pretenders. The Dravathi fleet surged forward. What happened next would be remembered for 10,000 years. The human ships did not fire all at once. They did not need to. Instead, they moved with impossible precision, each ship targeting a specific enemy. Weapons that made the Concord's best look like toys struck the Dravathi fleet. White beams of light, missiles that seemed to think for themselves, kinetic rounds fired at speeds that bent the laws of physics. The Dravathi ships began to fall. Not destroyed, Cyrus realized with shock, but disabled. The human weapons were hitting engines and weapons systems, not cores or bridges. They were taking the enemy apart without killing the crews inside. Kesoth's dreadnought, the Crimson Tide, turned to face the Prometheus. The massive Dravathi ship fired everything it had. Hundreds of weapons lit up the space between them. The Prometheus did not slow down. It did not change course. It simply absorbed the attack and kept coming. And then, when it was close enough, it fired a single shot. The Crimson Tide lost power. All of it. The massive ship went dark, floating dead in space. Through the view screens, Cyrus could see escape pods launching from its hull. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted 11 minutes. At the end, the entire Dravathi Grand Fleet was disabled. 800 warships, dead in space, their crews alive but helpless. Not a single human ship had been destroyed. Admiral Chen's voice came through the speakers again. Dravathi survivors, your escape pods are being collected. You will be treated well and returned to your homeworld when the war is over. To Supreme Commander Kesoth, you are now a prisoner of the Terran Stellar Navy. I hope you use your time in custody to think about the choices that brought you here. Cyrus was crying. She could not stop. Around her, On every ship and station and city on Velketh Prime, people were crying and laughing and holding each other. The fear was gone. The death that had seemed so certain had been pushed away. The humans had come, and they had saved them all. Morath's voice came through the communication system, broken and filled with emotion. To the human fleet, to Admiral Chen, I do not have words. We lit a beacon in our darkest hour, hoping for a miracle. And you answered, "Thank you. Thank you." Chen's response was simple and humble. You asked for help. We came. That is all, but it was not all. Cirrus knew that. Everyone knew that. The galaxy had just changed forever. The legends had returned, and nothing would ever be the same. The war ended not with fire, but with mercy. In the weeks after the Battle of Velketh Prime, the human fleets moved through Dravathi space like a wave that could not be stopped. Every system they entered, every station they approached, the result was the same. Surrender or be disabled. The Dravathi, who had never lost a war in their history, learned what it meant to face an enemy they could not beat. But the humans did not burn their worlds. They did not kill their people. They did not take revenge for the millions who had died in the Dravathi attacks. Instead, they did something that confused everyone. They helped. Cyrus watched from the bridge of the Adamantine as human cargo ships entered Dravathi space. Not warships, cargo ships, filled with food, medicine, building materials. The Dravathi had spent so much on their military that their own people were starving. Children were sick. Cities were falling apart. The humans saw this and decided to fix it. Why are you doing this? Cirrus asked Captain Vance. They attacked you. They killed innocent people. They would have destroyed us all. Vance looked out the window at a Dravathi city below, where human engineers were building a water treatment plant. Their leaders attacked us. Their soldiers followed orders. But the people down there, the children and farmers and workers, they did not start this war. Why should they suffer for the choices of others? Cirrus did not understand. In the Concord, enemies were punished. That was how it had always been. You hurt us. We hurt you back. But the humans did not think that way. We learned a long time ago. Vance continued, that revenge does not end anything. It just creates new enemies. If we destroy the Dravathi, their children will grow up hating us, and in 100 years, we will be fighting this war again. But if we help them, if we show them there is another way, then maybe their children will grow up different. The war officially ended when the Dravathi High Council surrendered. The Supreme Commander Kasoth was put on trial for his crimes. He expected to be executed. Instead, the humans sent him to a prison, where he would spend the rest of his life learning about the species he had tried to destroy. Some called it cruel. Others called it justice. Cirrus thought it might be both. A new government rose in the hegemony. Young leaders who had seen what hate could do. They signed treaties with the Concord and opened their borders to trade. It would take generations to heal the wounds, but at least the healing had begun. Cyrus returned to Velketh Prime as a hero. She did not feel like one. She had done nothing except watch, but the people called her the voice of the Concord, the one who had spoken to the legends and brought them home. Elder Counselor Morath gave her a medal. She put it in a drawer and never looked at it again. What mattered was what came next. The Concord changed. It had to. The humans did not want to rule them, but their presence changed everything. They shared technology, medicine, knowledge. They opened schools where Concord students could learn from human teachers. They built hospitals where the sick could be healed with methods that seemed like magic, and they asked for nothing in return. We have everything we need, Admiral Chen said when Morath offered to pay for the help. What we want is to see you grow, to see you become something greater than you are. That is payment enough. Cirrus was chosen to be the first Concord ambassador to Earth. She traveled through human space for months, visiting worlds she had never imagined. Green planets covered in forests, cities that floated in the clouds, stations built around stars, collecting energy to power civilization. Everywhere she went, she saw people living in peace, not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. She arrived on Earth on a spring morning. The sky was blue, filled with white clouds that moved slowly in the wind. Birds sang in the trees. A river flowed nearby, its water clean and clear. It was beautiful, more beautiful than anything she had ever seen. A young human woman met her at the landing pad. She had dark hair and bright eyes and a smile that seemed to fill her whole face. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador," she said. "I am Yuki. I will be your guide." They spent weeks together, traveling across the human homeworld. Cirrus saw mountains that touched the sky and oceans that stretched to the horizon. She saw cities filled with music and art and laughter. She saw schools where children learned not just facts, but how to be kind. She saw hospitals where doctors worked day and night to save lives. And she saw the memorials. There were many of them, spread across the planet. Great walls covered with names, fields filled with white stones, museums that told the story of human history, all the wars and hate and suffering that had come before. "We keep these places," Yuki explained, "to remember. Our ancestors made terrible mistakes. They hurt each other in ways that still make us cry. We remember so that we never forget what we are capable of, and so that we keep choosing to be better." On her last night on Earth, Cirrus stood in a garden filled with flowers. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Yuki stood beside her, quiet and peaceful. "I have to ask," Cirrus said. "Why do you do this? All of this? The kindness, the help, the mercy. What do you gain from it?" Yuki was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. "A long time ago, we looked at the universe and saw that it was dark and cold and full of pain. We could have accepted that. We could have become dark and cold ourselves. But we chose differently. We chose to be a light. Not because we gain anything from it, but because someone has to. And we decided that it would be us." Cirrus thought about that for a long time. When she returned to the Concorde, she wrote her final report to the Council. She told them about the human ships and weapons and technology, but mostly, she told them about the people. About their kindness and hope and stubborn refusal to give up on others. "We thought humans were legends because they seemed too good to be true," she wrote. "Protectors who asked for nothing, warriors who hated war, giants who knelt to help the small. We were wrong. They are not legends. They are simply what we might become, if we have the courage to try." The report was read by billions. It changed the way the Concorde thought about itself. Slowly, new ideas began to spread. New schools were built. New hospitals were opened. Leaders started talking about cooperation instead of competition. It would take time, maybe centuries. But the change had begun. Years later, Cirrus retired to a small house on the edge of a quiet town. She spent her days writing her memoirs and watching the stars. Sometimes young people would visit her, asking questions about the humans and the war and the day the legends returned. She always told them the same thing. One evening, a little girl from the village came to see her. She was small and curious, with big eyes full of wonder. "Ambassador," the child said, "why did the humans help us? We were strangers to them. They did not know us." Cirrus smiled and lifted the girl onto her lap. She looked up at the stars, where somewhere far away, the humans were still working, still building, still helping. "Because someone has to, little one," she said. "And a long time ago they decided it would be them." The girl thought about this. Then she smiled. "I want to be like that someday. I want to help people I do not know." Cirrus held her close, feeling hope bloom in her old heart. The humans had given the galaxy many gifts. Technology and medicine and protection. But the greatest gift of all was this. The knowledge that beings could choose to be good. That kindness was not weakness. That mercy was not foolishness. That sometimes the legends were real. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, a new light was growing. Not because anyone forced it to, but because the people of the galaxy had looked at the humans and thought, maybe we can be like that too. Maybe we can be the ones who help. And that, more than any weapon or ship or fleet, was what would change the universe forever. The end.